37 Deep TV, what's up? It's your host Lance Winnz. That's my ovation for President-elect Barack Obama. This is the first show I'm recording since the election had taken place. I record my show on Sundays, it airs on Fridays. So days pass before I'm able to speak on these things. But yeah, like I said, this is the first show I'm recording since then. But G, what up? D, what up? As is protocol, got to give a shout out to these dudes, G the General and D the Young CEO. Again, I'm your host, Lance Winnz. And my man done pulled it off, as I suspected he would. And based on that, there'll definitely be time for looking back. There'll definitely be time to kind of reflect on how the whole campaign went. I saw a lot of programs doing that already. But due to the fact that we have been following this election so closely, I'm going to have my own special way of recapping that whole thing. Maybe towards the end of the year, I'll let that go. But for right now, being that this is the first show, I feel it's more appropriate and actually even more productive, instead of looking back, to look ahead. Because I feel like this is the beginning of a new America, so to speak. But we can't look at this situation and take that accomplishment and think that anything is set in stone because of that. What that did is offer greater opportunity based on not only how we're viewed by others within this country, but how we view ourselves. So I think at this time, the most productive thing we could do is dig in hard to all aspects of American culture and demand that we not only our voices are heard, but that our ideas are understood, and that our way of life and our way of thinking is respected. And in order for that to happen, we have to respect ourselves. But when I say dig in, I'm talking about get involved in the stock markets, get involved in trade, whether it's foreign markets, whether it's foreign funds, foreign trade funds, and domestic stocks, preferred stocks, common stocks. Get involved in that. Watch a little CNBC, read a little Wall Street Journal, a little Forbes magazine, so forth and so on, and get involved in every aspect of American culture, because now the door is open. And even in politics, understand what's going on in politics and make your voice heard. Make your voice heard not only as a monolithic group, whereas most African Americans are registered as Democrats. I have to ask myself, why is that when most African Americans I know is conservative? Their mind states and our ideologies are more conservative than they are liberal, for the most part. But yet, because of certain things that transpired in the 60s and so forth and so on, and when Richard Nixon ran as the establishment against these anti-establishment war protesters and so forth and so on, and ultimately written them off as anti-America because they was protesting wars and fighting for civil rights and all the unrest that took place. He ran as the establishment candidate and kowtowed to the fears of middle America, thinking that America was about to blow up. And him, as a Republican, separated himself and created kind of a cultural divide and played off that cultural divide as politics normally does. Politics is very divisive. You know what I mean? But Richard Nixon played off that cultural divide and got elected into office as the establishment candidate against these anti-establishment nuts who was trying to burn down our country, so forth and so on. And ever since then, we've been on some Democratic vibe, like, because all the programs and initiatives that's set in place by Democratic candidates, the labor unions that are championed and so forth and so on, and all the, the entitlement programs that Democratic candidates are so known for. Black people felt as if we needed those forms of assistance, whether it was affirmative action, whether it was welfare, whatever programs that we needed assistance to be able to get our foot steady in the American field. So we felt closer to the Democrats. When prior to these days, way back in the 1900s, Democrats was the most racist, the deep Southern racist. But boom, we switched over to the Democrats. Notwithstanding that Abraham Lincoln, who created the Republican Party, is who fought to free the slaves and so forth and so on. But okay, we switched over to the Democrats. But now, due to the fact that everything's available for us, we need to start rethinking that. And not to say that everybody should switch over to Republican, just that we should diversify. Because not all black people think alike, so not all black people should be Democrats. Again, dig into American culture. Make it where these Republican parties have to adhere or at least consider us as a people before they create their policies and while they're creating their policies, and, you know, have us at the table while these policies are being created so they can stop these cultural warfares. Even Ronald Reagan ran on this platform where welfare is black people taking money out of white people's pocket. This is what he tricked the quote-unquote Reagan Democrats into believing, even though welfare was going more to white people than it was to black people. But all that being said, if in fact we do dig into these different aspects of American culture and make our voices heard in every aspect of American culture, this is what we've been afforded the opportunity to do. And I think, by all accounts, we should be taking advantage of that at this point. You understand what I'm saying? Because even this ban on gay marriage in California that was just voted on, Proposition 8, black people voted 70% to 30% to ban gay marriage. Whereas whites, I think, voted 49% and Hispanics voted 53%. Black people voted 70% against gay marriage. That's a real Republican attitude. That's a real conservative mind state. You know what I mean? If you with abortion, maybe you have a Democratic view. If you think abortion is murder, maybe you have a Republican, well, you do have a Republican view regarding that. If you into free enterprise, you got a Republican view. If you into being a worker in the labor unions and so forth and so on, because in my opinion, truthfully, labor unions often are more of the problem than a cure, because, you know, due to the fact that the labor force in America has so much power based on these unions. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I think that it'll never be balanced. I think sometimes this is good, sometimes this is good. I think it's kind of like a seesaw. It has to kind of sway back and forth at times. But when it sways too far to this left, where the labor unions have too much power and the workers are getting too many benefits, it becomes harder for the corporations to compete and to remain competitive with these countries that are not giving so much benefits to their workers. Therefore, the expenditures for the company are not so vast. So that being the case, these companies go overseas and hire other workers, which is why a lot of our people don't have jobs anymore, because these companies are moving overseas. Why? Because the workers here have too many benefits, health care, this, that, pensions, and all this type of stuff that the employer has to pay. And what ultimately ends up happening is those employers are not going to turn around and take the short in their pocket. They're going to raise the prices of the products and services that they're selling. So it causes inflation. But if you think that, you know, the corporation should be treated correctly, or should be treated with a certain leniency so that they can keep their businesses, you know, productive and growing, which creates more jobs, you might have a Republican point of view. If you feel like the workers should be getting raises all the time and health care and 8-week vacations, then maybe you have a Democratic point of view. But mind you, these aspects of enterprise is what closes businesses, because the employers can't afford to be paying all these extra things, which is why they get less workers, they fire some. Well, I'm going to pay 10 people $1,000 each, when I could pay 5 people $500 each, you know, like that. So, like I said, everything requires a balance, but at the same time, I think we require to be balanced as well. Some of us should be Democrats, some of us should be Republicans, so we can sit at both tables and our voices can be heard around the world, around the whole, within the whole circumstance.